from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, entitled The Glories of Devotional Service, text number 30. Tadetam me vijanihi,
tadetam me vijanihi,
yataham mandati Hare,
yataham mandati Hare,
sukham buddhye bodham,
sukham buddhye bodham,
yosha bhavat anugrahat,
yosha bhavat anugrahat,
tadetam me vijanihi,
tadetam me vijanihi,
yataham mandati Hare,
yataham mandati Hare,
sukham buddhye bodham,
sukham buddhye bodham,
yosha bhavat anugrahat,
yosha bhavat anugrahat,
tadetam me vijanihi,
tadetam me vijanihi,
yataham mandati Hare,
yataham mandati Hare,
sukham buddhye bodham,
sukham buddhye bodham,
yosha bhavat anugrahat,
yosha bhavat anugrahat. Tadetam me vijanihi, tadetam me vijanihi, yataham mandati Hare, yataham mandati Hare, sukham buddhaya durbadham, sukham buddhaya durbadham, yosha bhavat anugrahat, yosha bhavat anugrahat.
तदेतन में विजनी
Tadetam me vijanihi,
यताह मंदाधीर हरे
yataham mandati Hare,
सुखम बुद्धया दुर्बोधम
sukham buddhaya durbadham,
योषा भवत अनुग्रहा
yosha bhavat anugrahat.
Tadetam me vijanite,
Tadetam me vijanihi,
yataham mandati Hare,
yataham mandati Hare,
sukham buddhye durbodham,
sukham buddhaya durbadham,
yosha bhavat anugrahat,
yosha bhavat anugrahat.
tadetam me vijanihi,
Tadetam me vijanihi,
yataham mandati Hare,
yataham mandati Hare,
sukham buddhye durbodham,
sukham buddhaya durbadham,
yosha bhavat anugrahat.
yosha bhavat anugrahat.
तदेतं मे विजानीहि
Tadetam me vijanihi,
यताहं मन्दतिर्हरे
yataham mandati Hare,
सुखं बुद्ध्येय दुर्बोधं
sukham buddhaya durbadham,
योषा भवदनुग्रहात्
yosha bhavat anugrahat. Tadetam me vijanihi, yataham mandati Hare, sukham buddhaya durbadham, yosha bhavat anugrahat.
Tadetam me vijanihi,
Tadetam me vijanihi,
yataham mandati Hare,
yataham mandati Hare,
sukham buddhaya durbodham,
sukham buddhaya durbadham,
yosha bhavat anugrahat,
yosha bhavat anugrahat.
Mataji's.
Tadetam me vijanihi,
तदेतन में
vijanihi,
yataham mandati Hare,
yataham mandati Hare,
sukham buddhaya durbodham,
sukham buddhaya durbodham,
yosha bhavat anugrahat.
yosha bhavat anugrahat.
Tadetam me vijanihi,
Tadetam me vijanihi,
yataham mandati Hare,
yataham mandati Hare,
sukham buddhye durbodham,
sukham buddhaya durbodham,
yosha bhavat anugrahat.
yosha bhavat anugrahat.
Word to it. Translation. Tadeta, that same. Me, to me. Vijanihi. Please explain. Yatha, so that. Aham, I. Manda, slow. He, whose intelligence. Hare, O my Lord. Sukham, easily. Buddhyeya, may understand. Durbodham, very difficult to understand. Yosha, a woman. Bhavat anugrahat, by your grace. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. My dear son Kapila, after all, I am a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you will kindly explain to me, even though I am not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. Knowledge of the absolute truth is not very easily understood by ordinary, less intelligent men. But if the spiritual master is kind enough to the disciple, however unintelligent the disciple may be, then by the divine grace of the spiritual master, everything is revealed. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur therefore says, Yasya prasada Bhagavat prasada. By the mercy of the spiritual master, the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavat prasada is revealed. Devahuti requested her great son to be merciful towards her because she was a less intelligent woman and also his mother. By the grace of Kapila Dev, it was quite possible for her to understand the absolute truth, even though the subject matter is very difficult for ordinary persons, especially women. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayambhurva Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Madhavam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagarpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanuste Devi Pranamami Harike Vanshākalpataruvyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaurabhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. This verse today talks about how Mother Devahuti is very humbly submitting herself before Lord Kapila, even though Lord Kapila is her own son. The role has now changed and she is taking up the role of a disciple, and she is putting forward her position in a very humble way. The Vedic knowledge in itself is very vast, and it can be compared to an ocean of milk. student as such, to receive that knowledge, he has to approach the proper spiritual master. The spiritual master is like the person who can take the nectarian ocean of the divine knowledge in the Vedas and give it to the disciple. Now the disciple should approach the spiritual master as an empty pot, so that the spiritual master can pour the milk into him. The depth of the pot is the eagerness with which he is willing to receive, and the amount of humility that he has, that's compared to the space inside the pot. The more humble you are, there's more space. The more eager that you are to listen to that knowledge, the more depth you can take the knowledge into. Here we can see how Mother Devahuti is exhibiting the quality of humility and eagerness also. She is saying the subject matter is very difficult, and she is putting forward her position also as not very intelligent. Now, she is also praising the Lord. Despite my inabilities, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If you can explain it to me in such a way that I can understand it, then I will be able to understand. And what is the result of that? I will be able to get transcendental happiness. Earlier, she quoted how she was so much distressed with the material anxieties. And that's why she wanted Lord Kapila to dispel her ignorance, which is causing this distress. And now she is saying that by understanding this knowledge, I will be able to achieve transcendental happiness. So transcendental knowledge as such, even though it is present in the Vedic scriptures, it has to be given to us by the merciful medium of a spiritual master. Prior to that, previously we were reading verse number 28. The last line is very powerful. His Grace Karnanandi Prabhu was giving the class the other day. He said how Prabhupada has given it like a sutra. This line struck me the most. Prabhu was also quoting it. The devotional service most suitable for different types of devotees is determined and fixed by the mercy of the spiritual master. So what kind of devotional service should be performed by the disciple is fixed by the spiritual master. While I was thinking about it, even the teachings of, even for that matter, the books are written by Srila Prabhupada, the vast amount of knowledge that he has given to us, that itself is like an ocean. Now we need living representatives of Srila Prabhupada who can mercifully take that knowledge and give it to us according to the capacity that we can take. That is why it is mandatory to take a living spiritual master. So they will tell us at this particular state of your spiritual life, you should be reading certain books, you should be following certain devotional practices. There are 64 items in the nectar of devotion to be practiced. The first 3 are very important, where you take the shelter of the spiritual master, then you proceed further to take initiation, diksha, and then you discipline yourself, you dedicate yourself fully in following the instructions given by the spiritual master. So it is Siksha that's coming from them. So if you take shelter first, then you take Diksha, then you strictly follow the instructions given by the spiritual master. Now, after that, specific to your psychophysical nature, the services that you are to be engaged in, that will be given to you by your spiritual master. In that way, you can gradually get in touch with the transcendental knowledge. Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhaya mahajanam yena tadasapanta. The transcendental knowledge is confidential. It is hidden in the heart of the devotees. Now, for the knowledge to be transferred to you from the heart of the spiritual master, you need to please his heart. And when you do services in such a way that it is pleasing to him, then Krishna, who is residing in the heart of the devotee, inspires him to give that knowledge to you, and the spiritual master is very kind enough to give the transcendental knowledge to the disciple who is exhibiting the characteristics of humility and eagerness to listen. So the same quality was exhibited by Arjuna, and he also changed his role from that of a friend to that of a disciple. Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. From then onwards, Krishna took up the role of a spiritual master. It's, I was comparing these two, it's interesting to see how Krishna was about to laugh when Arjuna changed his role, but he controlled and he just smiled. Here also, when Mother Devahuti glorified Lord Kapila as you are the axe by which I can cut the knots, and you are the transcendental eye through which I can seek knowledge. Lord Kapila was also pleased, and he also was smiling. And later on, he started to describe the difference between matter and spirit, and also he gave a brief outline of Bhakti Yoga. He first talked about how by engaging in the service of the modes, one is caught up in material consciousness, but when that attraction towards the modes, when that same principle of attraction is transferred towards saintly personalities, that opens the doors for liberation. You know the verse? So, the principle of attraction to saintly persons was emphasized. Then naturally the question is, who is going to be the saintly person? How do I identify him? So then we saw the secondary characteristics of such saintly persons: Titikshava Karmika, Shuruda Sarvadehina, Ajata Shatrava Shanta, Sadhabhushana. These are secondary characteristics. Then the primary characteristic is they are constantly devoted to the Lord. That's the Swarupa Lakshana. That's the determining characteristic of a sadhu. Even if he is not engaged in, even if he doesn't exhibit the other qualities, if he exhibits Krishnaika Sharanam, this Ananya Bhakti, when he exhibits that, he is to be considered a sadhu. One has to take association from such sadhus. Now, what happens when we do that is, because you are pleasing a devotee, Krishna is more pleased with you. Rather than approaching Krishna directly, you are going through the medium of a devotee who has already Krishna in his heart. By that way, by pleasing the spiritual master, you are getting the mercy of Krishna. So among the many such sadhus who we come across, we try to serve them, inquire from them submissively, and that's the whole process. Tad-vidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshana. When you do this process to different sadhus who we come across, then among those who inspires us to connect to Srila Prabhupada the most, and who we are able to develop a personal relationship, that sadhu we choose as our Diksha Guru. We continue to take Siksha from all the sadhus, but whoever inspires you the most to connect you to Srila Prabhupada, that person you choose to take Diksha from. At the time of initiation, Krishna explains that Diksha Kare, Bhakta Kare, Atma Samarpan. At that time, the devotee fully dedicates himself. Now Krishna, at that time Krishna says, I also take him really very seriously, and I also consider him as good as myself. If a person is surrendering to Krishna through a proper spiritual master, what does Krishna do? Krishna also considers him as good as himself. Say Kale Krishna Kare Atma Sama. So the morning prayers that we sing, we begin our morning program with the song given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in which the glories of the spiritual master are described in 8 verses. There is also a 9th verse, which is the Falastuti. If a person is reciting this Guru Ashtakam loudly every morning, he, at the end of his life, will get the direct association of Lord Krishna. That's the Falastuti of singing Guru Ashtakam early in the morning. This is how nicely Srila Prabhupada has packaged very, very important forms of devotional service in our daily temple schedule. The praising of the Guru, that's how we start the day, by singing his glories. For this, no person is barred from doing it. Either you were born in a male body or a female body, whatever caste, creed you are in, no one is exempted. That is how bhakti process is very broad, and it is accommodating all types of varnas, ashramas and different genders. Here we see how Mother Devavati is putting forward her position. There is a very similar verse in which Mother Kunti also puts forward her position. It's a very nice purport. Srila Prabhupada writes to that verse. So this is 1.8.20. This is Mother Kunti saying to Lord Krishna, you yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators, who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? She is also taking a humble position. She is comparing herself to all the big mental speculators, advanced transcendentalists. They are able to distinguish between matter and spirit, and they can reach you. But how can I, being in the body of a woman, know you perfectly? Tata paramahamsanam muninam amalatmanam bhakti yoga vidanartam katam pasye mahistriya. That's a verse. Purport Srila Prabhupada writes, even the great philosophical speculators cannot have access to the region of the Lord. It is said in the Upanishads that the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead, is beyond the range of the thinking power of the greatest philosopher. He is unknowable by great learning or by the greatest brain. He is knowable only by one who has his mercy. Others may go on thinking about him for years together, yet he is unknowable. This very fact is corroborated by the queen. So Prabhupada here means Queen Kunti, who is playing the part of an innocent woman. Women in general are unable to speculate like philosophers. Here is where the interesting part is coming. How Prabhupada brings about the positive aspect. Women in general are unable to speculate like philosophers, but they are blessed by the Lord because they believe at once in the superiority and almightiness of the Lord. And thus they offer obeisances without reservation. The Lord is so kind that He does not show special favor only to one who is a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of purpose. For this reason only, women generally assemble in great number in any sort of religious function. In every country and in every sect of religion, it appears that the women are more interested than the men. This simplicity of acceptance of the Lord's authority is more effective than showy, insincere religious fervor. Now, who has got the upper hand in spirituality is clearly brought out by Srila Prabhupada here. So why is brahmachari training needed for brahmacharis or for men? Is to get rid of the false ego thinking that I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, I am the proprietor. Whereas a soul living in the body of a woman, she has the natural tendency to offer obeisances without reservation. And they like to gather in large numbers in religious functions. And Prabhupada clearly says that attracts the mercy. So offering obeisances without reservation, accepting the Lord without any reservation, that is the quality that's inherent in women. So that's the strongest point. Now by this, we can understand how it's the same principle that Mother Devahuti is exhibiting. She is putting herself in a position where she is 100% conducive to receive transcendental knowledge. She says herself that she was a less intelligent woman. But as you progress, if we start reading the questions that she is going to ask Lord Kapila, it is not from a less intelligent woman. As we know by reading the previous verses or previous chapters, she is also a perfected yogini. She is playing the part of a less intelligent woman. And she, just like Arjuna was milking Krishna as a cow, it is compared as Krishna being the cow and Arjuna being the calf. Here, Lord Kapila is the cow and Mother Devahuti is a calf. The role is reversed actually. Mother playing the role of a calf, the son being the cow. So, the transcendental knowledge, as we discussed in the first point of this, she is exhibiting the quality of an empty pot with the depth of receiving transcendental knowledge. The eagerness is there and the space is the humility. So both the qualities that she is exhibiting. And over and above we saw the other qualities women have is offering respects to the Lord without reservation and gathering in religious festivals in great numbers. And even here we see how one part of the class, they're actually busy doing devotional service simultaneously. They're making gimmicks, some are making garlands, and simultaneously they're hearing. And the other section we are hardly able to keep ourselves. So, when it comes to spirituality, the more unfavorable position that you are put in, you are actually getting the mercy of the Lord more quickly. It's interesting that in the South Indian Brahmana story, as to how the Brahmana was illiterate and his spiritual master gave him the instruction that you must read a chapter of Gita daily, and he can't even read. But still, he made an attempt. He was taking up the Gita and he was trying to read. On seeing the pictures of Krishna riding the chariot, this Brahmana, even though he was illiterate, he was able to appreciate how the Lord is so merciful that he has taken up the position of a chariot driver for his own devotee. Thinking that, meditating on that, he used to cry. Others used to make fun, but when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to know about this, he actually went to see this Brahmana. He thought, I must see him. And this Brahmana, after seeing Mahaprabhu, he could sense that this person has not come to make fun of me. So then Mahaprabhu inquired, "Oh, Brahmana, I see that you are crying. Why is that you are crying?" He said, "My spiritual master gave this instruction to study Gita, but I am an illiterate, what to do? I am trying to read, but I am not able to. So that is fine, but why are you crying?" So I saw the picture of Krishna driving the chariot of Arjuna. I am illiterate, I am less intelligent, but still I am able to see how Krishna, being the Supreme Person, he takes up the role of chariot driver for his own devotee. So that brought tears in my eyes. So Mahaprabhu, he did an extremely important thing. He embraced that Brahmana. That person, being an illiterate, not being able to read Gita cover to cover, but he understood the essence. So Mahaprabhu said, "You have understood the essence of Gita." So when one takes up such humble position where admitting all the disqualifications we have, we still put the best effort. So then that attracts the mercy. So that person is also following the instruction of his spiritual master. So by strictly following the instructions of the spiritual master, you attract the mercy of the Lord himself. Actually, a lot of the qualities that women have, like controlled speech, then chastity, being able to selflessly serve. So what's the highest love that's compared in this material world, that's comparable to that in the spiritual world, is the love of a mother to that of her child. So the love that the mother shows to the child is selfless. So if we actually compare these qualities to the first verse of Nectar of Instruction, Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udaropastha Vegam, Itan Vegan, Yo Vishaheda Dhira, Sarvam, Pimam, Prithvimsa, Sishya. So a person who is able to control control the urges of his tongue, belly, genitals, his urges of his mind, anger. So what can he become? He can become a spiritual master. Lot of time when the qualities of how women should conduct themselves, when those things are given, if we simultaneously compare to that, if they are being strictly followed, what do they qualify to become? They qualify to become the spiritual master. So instead of viewing them as restrictions, if they're taken in a way from a Shastri point of view and followed strictly, then what do you qualify to become? You qualify to become the transparent via medium by which you can also pass on this transcendental knowledge to others. So that is how whatever unfavorable situation that we are in, that should not prevent us from doing devotional service. Maya is so powerful that when such unfavorable or uncomfortable situations or dangers come, it says, okay, what are you going to do? Give it up. Give up bhakti. It's okay, you've tried enough, so just give it up. No, the unfavorable situations are actually a benediction. If you read the prayers of Mother Kunti, next to this verse, immediately after putting herself in a lower position, what comes out of her mouth is the greatest prayers that can be offered to Krishna by anybody. She says, let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda and the other cowherd men of Vrindavana, and the enlivener of the cows and the senses. It's a very famous verse. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopak Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So what happens after you put yourself in a lower position? The mercy of Krishna starts to flow, and she is able to compose these prayers. These are a set of prayers, very, very highly exalted ones. And I have heard many times, many spiritual masters have recommended to memorize this set of prayers by Kunti. And one of the anga of devotionals, or one of the aspects, is to recite notable prayers which are written by exalted personalities. So this is a very nice verse. Probably we can all recite together. Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
Devaki Nandanaya Cha
Devaki Nandanaya Cha
Nanda Gopak Kumaraya
Nanda Gopa Kumaraya
Govindaya Namo Namaha.
Govindaya Namo Namaha.
So that's how we see the unfortunate situations or unfavorable situations that we are in can actually be a great benediction. And the mistakes that we commit, the offenses that we commit in our devotional service, the caution that we take should come in between us and doing offenses again. It should not come in between us doing bhakti. Oh, I am so unfortunate, I can't even practice bhakti. No, that is actually the trick of the mind, saying that you can't practice bhakti because you are in such an unfavorable position. No, such precautions we need to take, we need to have sufficient knowledge by which we don't do those mistakes. So that should not come in between us doing devotional service to Krishna. Many times, the 11th canto, one of the verses Gopindesh Prabhu used to often quote, as to how the jiva will struggle with his senses, and many times he will be overcome by the pullings of his senses. He will become ajitendriya. He will not be able to control the senses. But still, if he is continuing to render service, Krishna says, I will take care of delivering such a person. So at no point of time in our devotional life, we should give up the process. No matter what situation we are put in, what unfavorable situation we are put in. The process should continue, whereby we are in the fire of devotional service, and slowly the unwanted things will go away. So I'll stop here and ask if there are any comments, questions, corrections. Yes.
How can we apply this instruction in preaching activities?
Which instruction?
Today's verse.
Today's verse. How can today's verse be applied in preaching? I mean, preaching, the instruction, can you clarify, like what instruction?
But it's perhaps pretty easy to see how the verse applies to us personally. But when we're trying to share Krishna consciousness to other people, what advantage can we take from this instruction?
While preaching to others, we can point out as to how the quality of humility is widely taught even in corporate circles, so that you can actually become inspiring a leader, whereby if you are in a position, putting yourself in a position, exhibiting all these qualities like humility, tolerance, you are actually preparing yourself to serve others, and by that you can become a servant leader. So that's a concept that's coming up. It's been there, it's becoming popular now. Servant leadership. That is one way of inspiring people. The other point could be brought out as to how when they go through education, when they have to approach a teacher, whether a teacher in the school or college, or for that matter, any educational institution, you approach them with the intention to receive knowledge. So you are taking a position which is lesser than that of the person who you are trying to get knowledge from. I remember this example, personal example, as to how when I started doing my master's degree, the first assignment, I actually failed, and I had to go and approach the professor and ask for clarification as to how, what happened there, how can I rectify it. And I could see myself a little mature at that time compared to when I just finished my year 12 and I was trying to get admission in a college. Me and my father were there, and when my turn came to enter the room of the professor, I just went in, and then my father followed me, and my father was a little anxious, and he actually said, "Good morning, sir," to the professor, and I was just standing there like that. What? A bit immaturity. So, and then the professor said, "Get out, go, knock the door, come in, and then do what your father did." I said, "Okay." So I went out, did as per things. Then I realized, okay, there is an etiquette to follow when you are meeting somebody who is superior. So that experience helped me when I was doing my master's. It's now when I approached this professor in University of South Australia. So I took a proper appointment and I went to him and then I didn't even sit. Then I was standing and then, okay, he said, you can take your seat. And then what's the problem? And then I said, see, look, I have failed in this. So can you please tell me, how do I get out of this? Like, is there a way that I can resubmit the assignment or do something? Because the first time I'm here, it's the first course that I'm doing. So he was able to understand the point of view that I'm coming from. Like, had I done the same thing, just walked into the room and then said, hey, I failed, what should I do now? I said, okay, get out. So the whole point is, you apply this in your real life in every step, like while getting educated, while getting trained in your work life. You can't behave like this to your boss, so you take a position which is humble and you learn the skills, you master it. So in that way, I feel we can take up some preaching points on this. So that answer.
On that point, I remember a story. My Guru Maharaj Swami went to Bangalore and he heard that the police is very much afraid of these devotees. They make too much noise, sound, this, that. So my spiritual master said he thought he will go to the police station. So what Krishna says, Pariprashnin Sevaya. So he first went down and humbly spoke. And from that day, the police had such a good attitude about the Hare Krishnas. They loved him.
Yeah.
They were coming in the program. So one example is that humility is most important, what you were saying in class. And the other thing is the Nimatsara. Bhagavatam emphasizes Nimatsara. We have to leave this quality of envy to others. That is most important. And what Prabhupada is telling, those prayers are most, what Prabhupada has given the best program, if we follow that, Founder-Acharya, humility, Nimatsara, the example you give, then we can make our life perfect. And from this very body, we can go to the spiritual world. By mercy of Radha, most important. Because Prabhupada has shown such nice deities. See the decoration, the beauty, the smile. Krishna is smiling on us. So we are getting mercy because of the spiritual master.
Yeah, so the incident Prabhu was saying is about his spiritual master, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami. Because I also heard this incident as to how there was a bit of a tension and Maharaj took the devotees to the police station. Everybody was expecting something to happen, but unexpectedly, Maharaj actually bowed down.
Absolutely.
He actually led the way by, he said, that's how a leader behaves. So he bowed down and then the police, and they were taken aback and they then respected, as Prabhu was mentioning, the ISKCON devotees later on. So yeah, humility. Yes.
It appears to me in the lecture that women have natural advantage over men in terms of their control, tongue, belly, and mind. How come we don't see them as a spiritual master in our life?
Can you summarize the question?
Now the question is, if women are following the qualities that are described in the Nectar of Instruction verse 1, then why are we not seeing them as spiritual masters in our life? The qualities that I described and then the ideal characteristics of a woman, I just made a comparison of that of a spiritual master, and then the ideal characteristics that are exhibited to be exhibited by women. That's also given in the Shastras. So if a person is able to exhibit those qualities, so then they can be considered as a spiritual master. Within ISKCON, there is a Vedic Advisory Committee who are taking up references from the Shastras as to how women can also become Diksha Gurus. So there is a discussion going on in this regard as to women Diksha Gurus. I am not sure what decision is made, but it is being considered by ISKCON how women can also become Diksha Gurus. But what resolution is passed and what decision is made, I am not 100% sure, but that is being considered. Any questions, Father? Jai. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Swami Bhaktivedanta.